The risk of living a public life. I'm not talking about myself here because I don't have almost no audience, but what I am talking about is this. A given amount of people will always not like you. Of course, you can try to be as nice to as many people as possible, or to almost all the people you interact with. But the problem is, a certain amount of people will always not like you. This is fixed. So now, if you know 100 people, or if 100 people know you rather, because it's kind of a reverse, then there might be, let's say, one person that doesn't like you. Now, if you scale the whole thing up to 1,000, to 100,000, to 1,000,000, to maybe even more than 1,000,000, 10, 100. Let's think about PewDiePie, for example. He has, I think, about 100 million subscribers. I didn't really follow his subscriber count, but around this number. Now, 1,000,000 of these people are people who don't like PewDiePie. And that's a very low conservative estimate on how many people don't like PewDiePie. Now here's the problem. Out of this one person, out of this 1%, there might be an even smaller minority who might actually mean harm to you, who might actually go above and beyond to try to make their point, even with physical threats, for example. So now, if you basically have a certain message, or if you are a certain public person, then of course there are different public persons with different hate to like ratios. But these hate to like ratios we just assume now are fixed. And now if we scale them up, you scale also up the part of these haters that would actually go above and beyond. So basically these haters are of course not all equal in terms of their opinion about you, but some would maybe even consider violence as a method of establishing their statement. So now the problem is, if you then now lead a public life, just think about the people who just might want to kill you. If you scale from 100 people to 1,000,000 people to 100 million people, this number basically scales exactly like the audience. If, again, this is fixed. Then now the problem is, because you are living a public life, people might know a lot of things about you. And the more people know things about you, and the more things people know about you, the more you are basically a surface for these people to attack. And also not only you, but maybe also your close relatives, your family, maybe also your wife, your children. And this, I think, is a very large downside of living a public life. Just because, for example, people state things on Twitter, people these days are cancelled, and there might be a subset of people that, for example, would mean harm to someone like Jordan Peterson, to someone like Sam Harris, to someone like Joe Biden, to someone like any other president. And I think that's a very actually real risk that many people don't consider when trying to live a more and more public life. So maybe it's not the best idea of all to film your home restoration vlog and then to actually live within the same building, because then these people just within, the only thing you now have to do as a person who wants to do harm to another person is to research a few facts or hack a few facts. Or maybe if you film outside of your house, for example, maybe the only thing you have to do is try to match the image on Google Street View, for example, or try to get any cues about where the location actually is. And I think it's not as hard as you would think to get a lot of information. There was this case of someone, I think his name is Corpse, who was famous for having a very deep voice. And this person actually got doxxed. Now, doxing is a term that is used for finding out personal public information about people, but collecting and condensing this information down and then releasing this information again publicly. It's not illegal because it's just acquiring the different traces we leave online, for example. But at the same time, I think it makes sense to just try to look at the risk profile of pursuing a career that requires, to some extent, living a public life. Or just think about actors, for example. Of course, many actors are beloved, but if an actor, for example, plays a villain again and again and again, then the association many people will have with this person is probably a more and more negative one. Or maybe they just praise the acting skills. But this is not that they just praise the acting skills, but a certain percentage of people praises the acting skills. And a certain percentage of people does not. And a certain percentage of people maybe doesn't agree with someone like Will Smith slapping another person, and then maybe would mean harm to his family. And maybe state all these things online. This is a really big problem, and it's getting bigger every single day with more and more people living a public life because of TikTok, because of YouTube Shorts, but because also of other social media platforms.